All right, this weekend, a very familiar face is going to be in town. Savannah Guthrie from the Today Show will be at the new Clark Family Branch Library for her brand new book. The book is called Mostly What God Does Is Love You. And guess what? We are so glad that we get to talk to Savannah about it before she comes to St. Louis. Hi, Savannah.
Hi, Michelle. It's great to be with you. I can't wait to see you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. We are all very excited about your new kids book. Why did you decide to write it?
Oh, I'm excited too. You know, about a year ago, I wrote a book that was for grown-ups. I call it the grown-up book now, called Mostly What God Does. And it was a series of essays and reflections about faith. And I mean, just doing that a year ago was the most vulnerable thing I ever did. I felt like I was just putting my heart out there to talk about something so personal, but it was such a beautiful experience. I received so many letters and I had so many deep and beautiful conversations about faith, and it just seemed to translate so well to a children's book. I mean, the book is called Mostly What God Does Is Love You. That is the message of the book, and it's simple enough for a child to understand. And it's simple, but it isn't easy. It's profound, actually, especially in the world that we live in. You know, we see, especially in our news business, you know, we see a lot of heartache. We see a lot of things that sometimes, frankly, shake faith. But this message, if it can really be absorbed and ingested, is really powerful. And I wanted to share that with kids. And I knew that kids would respond to it. And so I hope it's just a gentle, just like the grown-up book was a gentle call to be loved and then to share that love. That's what this children's book is as well.
Why do you think this is a great message now for kids, especially?
You know, I think that whether you're a kid or an adult, I think actually one thing I've learned through this whole experience is that people really yearn to engage in a deeper conversation, and they want to talk about matters of the spirit and the soul and the heart. And kids do too. You know, my kids are 8 and 10, and it's interesting. I think kids have a natural interest in these kinds of subjects. They have good questions, sometimes questions that are kind of impossible to answer, but the hope is that this just leaves a little space in the day for God. And my view is always, as a mom, I mean, obviously my faith is very important to me, and I'm trying to teach my kids about the God that I know, because I know how important it's been in my life. But I also know that there will come a time when they grow up and they'll make their own choices. I mean, we have free will. So I know it's my job to give them the information, and then I would say, well, let God take it from there. And I think this book is kind of like that. It is a gentle good night, you know, it's just a sweet good night story, but it's not preachy or proselytizing or anything like that. But it makes space for God. And I think that that's something that kids will really respond to. And I'm also hoping that sometimes this simple, beautiful message will hit a mom or a dad who's weary and reading and trying to kiss that baby to bed and hoping they'll fall asleep fast. I hope it touches them too.
Yeah, and don't you think that some of the big conversations always come during bedtime story time, you know? So when I talk to my 6-year-old, it's always like big questions at bedtime.
I know. And sometimes you're like, oh, can we just talk about this in the morning? And sometimes you can. I always say to my daughter's a worrier like me. I'm always like, okay, is there anything we can do about that right now? No, then let's just put that in our little basket of worries and it'll be there waiting for us tomorrow. But these kinds of conversations about God and just kind of setting us in proper perspective, you know, that the world is big, the idea of God is big, and we are small, but never too small for Him. And I think that perspective is really valuable, to hold both of those truths at the same time.
Yeah, I love it. And then you mentioned this earlier, so I do want to ask, how do you tap into faith, given that sometimes the news can really challenge anybody's faith, but especially if you are living in it 24/7 like you are?
Yeah, I mean, all of us. I think all of us are basically news people now. You know, it's like everyone lives in the news cycle. You open your phone, it hits you whether you want it to or not. And I think that's even more reason why we really have to be so conscientious and try to carve out that space for ourselves, little quiet moments. And I'm the first to say I'm not the greatest at that. You know, I try to get those good practices going, and I do try to spend a few moments every single day in prayer. But like anyone, my mind races and it devolves into a to-do list. And I think the main thing I'd say about all of that is that God understands that. You know, understands what it is to be human and has compassion on us and loves us. And that's part of the message there, is you don't have to have all these perfect practices or have a perfect life. I certainly have never, even though I've been writing about faith and I care so much about it, I've always been the first to say I'm not holding myself as any kind of example, and I certainly am not some kind of scholar, but I do know what it's like to have walked with God and felt really loved and saved by God, and I've also known what it's like to walk away from God sometimes and have my periods and seasons of doubt. And what I found out was no matter what I did, it didn't change how he felt about me or how he related to me. And that for me was this profound revelation that mostly what God does is love you, and that has nothing to do with anything you do for or against him. And I really think that's why I wanted to spread this message. I had something good to say, and I just wanted to share it.
You're such an inspiration, and this is the right message at the right time. I gotta say, you sold out in St. Louis. We are all excited for you to be here. The new facility is stunning. Yay. And we're gonna try to claim you. I know you have Arizona ties, but we're gonna claim you in Missouri because you lived here and worked here. Anything you wanna see or do when you're in town?
I mean, I just absolutely have the fondest memories. I mean, moving to Columbia, Missouri when I was right out of college was really my first job in television. First time I'd ever lived away from home. And so Missouri is kind of a huge part of my upbringing, and I lived in Columbia and worked in the local station there, but I would love to drive to St. Louis and of course the Gateway Arch. The first professional game of any sort I ever saw was the Cardinals game at Busch Stadium. So I just have a lot of good memories, and I have a good friend that still lives there, and so hoping to see her. And I've been by, like, there was gosh, I guess it goes back to 2008 now, there was a debate that I came to St. Louis for. So I have super fond memories and can't wait to get back and see you guys.
Oh my gosh, we're excited to see you. Good luck with the book. We'll get you some toasted raviolis too while you're in town. But thank you so much, and safe travel.
Let's do it, Michelle.
Okay, we'll see ya.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. See you soon.
See ya.